In early 2014, a media monopoly intentionally torched $100 million of guaranteed annual profit. It was not an operational accident, a catastrophic hack, or a sudden collapse in customer demand. It was a calculated, deliberate act of economic sabotage against their own cash cow, and it left Wall Street entirely convinced that the company had lost its mind. Think about how you consumed high-stakes live events a decade ago. It is 7:55 on a Sunday evening. You are sitting on a living room carpet with 3 friends, staring at a static television screen, pooling together crumpled $10 bills from your wallets just to afford a single $60 pay-per-view broadcast. You dial a toll-free number or click an archaic cable box menu, praying the authorization signal hits your receiver before the opening bell rings. For 3 decades, that $60 transaction was the undisputed holy grail of sports entertainment. It was reliable, it was recurring, and it printed cash without requiring physical inventory. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the company running that empire stepped onto a stage in Las Vegas and announced that their biggest $60 events would now cost $9.99. Not just one show, but every single live event on the calendar, bundled alongside their entire historical tape library. Overnight, the cost to watch their crown jewel product dropped by 83%. To the average observer, it looked like sheer corporate suicide. Why would any business voluntarily trade a guaranteed $60 check for $10? Now, look closely at the math. If you sell a product for $60, you need 1 customer to generate $60 in gross revenue. If you drop that price to $10, you do not just need to replace that customer, you need 6 entirely new customers just to break even on that single transaction. The entire traditional business world operates on margin protection. You never cut prices unless competition forces your hand or demand falls off a cliff. Yet here was an undisputed market leader slashing their prices to the bone while still selling out arenas across the globe. Now look, I am no financial advisor. I just read public filings and obsess over balance sheets. But when a dominant enterprise destroys its own flagship pricing model, they are rarely doing it to be generous to you. They are usually doing it because they have identified a lethal hidden predator in their ecosystem that nobody else is paying attention to. The central mystery is not why they made the product cheap. The central mystery is what terrifying reality forced them to accept an immediate, devastating loss of cash flow. The public assumed this was a desperate attempt to look like a modern tech startup. But behind closed doors, a silent structural war had broken out between the people who created the content and the invisible gatekeepers who controlled the wires. Imagine you own the most popular bakery in your city, but there is a catch. Every single loaf of bread you bake has to pass through a private toll booth sitting at the end of your driveway. The toll booth operator does not need the dough, they do not buy the flour, and they do not wake up at 4 in the morning to heat the ovens. Yet, every time a customer walks up to buy a $6 loaf, the operator takes $3 right out of the cash register. Worse, they refuse to give you the customer's name, their phone number, or their email address. That was the brutal reality of the pay-per-view cable model. When that fan sitting on the living room carpet bought a $60 event, $30 went straight to Comcast, DirecTV, or Time Warner just for transmitting the signal across their copper lines. The entertainment company took all the physical damage, paid the athletes, rented the arenas, and absorbed the production risks, while the middleman took half the top-line revenue simply for existing between the screen and the viewer. This dynamic exploits our fundamental human desire for safety. As a business, you tolerate the middleman because they provide you with an illusion of security. They hand you access to 80 million households with 0 customer acquisition costs. You convince yourself that losing half your revenue is just the cost of doing business in a civilized market. But the moment you accept that trade-off, you hand over your ultimate survival to an external entity that does not care if your brand lives or dies. The public PR narrative at the time claimed that pay-per-view was simply evolving to match the digital era. But look at the underlying unit economics. By depending on cable operators, the company had 0 direct relationship with its audience. If a viewer skipped an event, the creators had no way of knowing whether the customer lost interest, could not afford the $60 that month, or simply forgot the broadcast was on. The cable company owned the data, the cable company owned the customer identity, and the cable company held the veto power over the entire distribution pipeline. Now, the obvious counter-argument from traditional media analysts was simple. Why mess with a machine that is still generating tens of millions of dollars every quarter? Cable was still the dominant media ecosystem in 2014. Cutting-edge streaming was notoriously unstable, buffering was constant, and digital infrastructure was terrifyingly expensive to maintain. Risking a reliable, high-margin cash spigot for an unproven digital pipe dream seemed like unhinged corporate hubris. The traditional media executives assumed that keeping the status quo was the safest play. Therefore, they refused to disrupt the $60 toll booth, leaving a massive structural vulnerability wide open for anyone crazy enough to endure the initial financial bleeding. To build an escape hatch from the cable toll booth, the company had to build an entirely new technological spine from scratch. Instead of building it internally, they outsourced the infrastructure to the same covert technology unit that powered Major League Baseball's streaming division. The goal was to construct a digital fortress that could handle hundreds of thousands of concurrent video streams without crashing under the weight of a live global broadcast. The immediate financial consequence was catastrophic. The moment the $9.99 service went live in February 2014, legacy distributors realized the content creators were actively executing a bypass around their toll booths. In direct retaliation, major satellite providers like Dish Network and DirecTV stripped the company's events from their legacy schedules, instantly strangling the old revenue stream before the new streaming platform had enough subscribers to compensate. Then came May of 2014. The company held its quarterly earnings call and revealed the raw numbers. Wall Street expected the new platform to instantly convert millions of fans, but the subscriber count hovered at just around 667,000. To put that in perspective, that was well below the break-even threshold needed to offset the lost cable revenue. The market reacted with unmitigated fury. In a single trading session, the company's stock plunged over 40%, vaporizing more than $350 million in market value in less than 8 hours. Let's follow the cold logic behind that bloodbath. The market judged the company using traditional media multiples, assuming that lower immediate profits meant a dying brand. But they missed the invisible moat being constructed beneath the surface. Every single person who signed up for that $9 app was handed a direct account. For the first time in history, the company knew the exact name, email, credit card, viewing habits, and click patterns of every single human being watching their product. That shift from an anonymous cable transaction to a verified first-party data vault fundamentally transformed the business model. Instead of relying on seasonal $60 spikes that swung wildly based on card quality, they built a predictable, recurring monthly annuity. They eliminated the middleman's 50% cut entirely, turning a fragile transactional business into a resilient subscription ecosystem. They traded the illusion of high-margin safety for the reality of total distribution sovereignty. The old cable gatekeepers believed they held all the leverage because they owned the physical infrastructure in the ground. But they failed to realize that raw copper cables are completely worthless without the emotional content that makes people turn on the screen in the first place. Think back to that fan on the carpet. Fast forward a few years. They no longer call a cable operator. They do not split a $60 fee with 4 friends. They open an app on their phone during a subway commute, stream a 3-minute highlight clip, purchase a piece of merchandise directly through an integrated portal, and let a recurring $9 subscription quietly bill their bank account in the background every 30 days. They went from being an anonymous data point on a cable bill to an active, daily participant in an end-to-end digital ecosystem. Why does this trade-off matter? Because when you control your distribution, you control your ultimate enterprise valuation. By taking that brutal 40% stock hit in 2014 and enduring years of Wall Street mockery, the company transformed itself from a seasonal entertainment act into a pure digital media asset. When the massive legacy media conglomerates finally panicked and realized they needed live content to feed their own streaming apps, they did not have time to build what this company had spent 7 years perfecting. In 2021, an entertainment conglomerate paid over $1 billion just to license the domestic streaming rights to that library for 5 years. Then, in early 2024, a global streaming titan stepped in with a 10-year deal worth over $5 billion to secure their weekly live content across the planet, ultimately driving the enterprise into a merger valuation exceeding $21 billion. Most people still believe WWE dropped its pay-per-view price to $9.99 because they were being cheap. The reality is that they dropped the price because undercutting their own product was the only weapon powerful enough to starve the cable middleman, capture their own audience, and force the world's largest tech platforms to pay them billions for the keys to the kingdom. In modern business, the easiest way to lose an empire is to protect a profitable past at the expense of an inevitable future. The most dangerous players in any market are not the ones trying to maximize today's margins. They are the ones perfectly willing to bleed in the short term, knowing that whoever controls the customer connection ultimately owns the entire game.